Lisa stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror as she applied her lipstick. 15 years of marriage had been kind to her appearance. She still had the figure that had first caught Mark's eye, though she worked harder now to maintain it. At 42, she noticed the fine lines around her eyes, but they didn't bother her as much as the emptiness she sometimes saw behind them. She heard Mark moving around in the bedroom, getting ready for work. Another day, another routine. They moved around each other like dancers who knew the steps but had forgotten the music. "I'll be late tonight," Mark called out, his voice carrying the familiar tone of apology mixed with determination. "The Anderson case is going to trial next week, and the team needs to prepare." Lisa stepped out of the bathroom, forcing a smile. "Of course. Don't worry about dinner. I'll find something to do." Mark nodded, already focused on his phone. He was handsome in his tailored suit, salt and pepper hair giving him a distinguished look that matched his status as a senior partner at his law firm. At 45, he carried the confidence of success: the house in the suburbs, the luxury cars in the garage, the vacation home they rarely visited together. He crossed the room and kissed her cheek, a gesture as routine as brushing his teeth. "You look nice," he said, noticing her outfit. "Meeting someone for lunch?" "Just the gym, then errands," Lisa replied, wondering if he actually saw her at all anymore. After Mark left, the house fell into silence. Lisa wandered into the kitchen, running her hand along the marble countertop of their recently renovated kitchen. Everything in their life looked perfect from the outside. Their friends envied their marriage: no drama, no financial worries, no children to complicate their lives after they had decided kids weren't for them. She poured her coffee and gazed out at their manicured backyard. The gardener would come today. The housekeeper had been yesterday. Their lives were organized, predictable, and utterly devoid of passion. When had they stopped touching each other? Lisa couldn't remember the last time they'd made love. 3 months ago? 4? It had become mechanical before it stopped altogether. Mark would roll over, kiss her, and they would go through the motions. Afterward, he would squeeze her shoulder and turn away, already thinking about work. Lisa finished her coffee and got ready for the gym. Exercise had become her escape, the one place where she felt her heart race and her body come alive. She chose her workout clothes carefully, tight-fitting leggings and a top that showed off her toned arms. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, she told herself. She just wanted to feel good about herself. At the gym, Lisa caught sight of her reflection again as she warmed up on the treadmill. She increased the speed, pushing herself harder, feeling the sweat begin to form on her skin. The physical exertion helped quiet the thoughts that had been circling in her mind, thoughts of wasted years and dying desire. Later that evening, Lisa sat alone at their dining table, picking at a salad she'd made. Mark had texted that he would be even later than expected. "Don't wait up," he had written, as if she would. She opened a bottle of wine and poured herself a glass, then another. The house felt too big around her, too quiet. She walked through the rooms, looking at the photographs on the walls. Their wedding, vacations, dinners with friends. They were smiling in all of them. Had they been happy then, or just better at pretending? In their bedroom, Lisa opened Mark's side of the closet. His suits hung in neat rows, organized by color. She ran her fingers along the fabric, remembering how she used to straighten his tie in the mornings, how they would kiss before parting for the day. Real kisses then, not the perfunctory pecks they exchanged now. She lay down on their king-sized bed, feeling its emptiness. The ceiling fan turned lazily above her. Lisa closed her eyes and tried to remember when Mark had last looked at her with desire, when his touch had last made her skin tingle. Nothing came to mind. Tomorrow, she decided, she would talk to him. They would reconnect somehow, find what they had lost. But as she drifted to sleep alone in their perfect house, part of her wondered if it was already too late, if they had already become strangers living under the same roof, too comfortable with their distance to bridge the gap. The gym was busier than usual when Lisa arrived the next morning. She signed in at the front desk, nodding to the familiar faces of the morning regulars. As she made her way to the treadmills, she noticed a new face. A young man talking to Karen, the gym manager. "Lisa," Karen waved her over. "Perfect timing. I want you to meet our newest trainer, Jason." Jason turned around, and Lisa felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. He was tall with broad shoulders and warm brown eyes. His t-shirt stretched across his chest, revealing a physique that spoke of dedication rather than vanity. "Nice to meet you," he said, extending his hand. His grip was firm, his palm warm against hers. "Karen tells me you're one of the regulars." 5 days a week, Lisa replied, suddenly aware of how she looked in her workout clothes. "It keeps me sane." Jason smiled. "I know what you mean. Exercise is the best therapy." Karen looked between them. "Jason's taking over some of Mike's clients since Mike moved to California." "Lisa, didn't you mention wanting to try some personal training sessions?" Lisa hadn't, but something made her nod. "Yes, I've been thinking about it. Jason has an opening at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays if you're interested," Karen said. Later, as Lisa worked through her usual routine, she found herself glancing over at Jason as he guided an elderly client through gentle resistance exercises. His patience was evident, his encouragement genuine. When their eyes met briefly, he smiled, and Lisa quickly looked away, feeling like a teenager caught staring at her crush. That night, Mark came home earlier than usual. He found Lisa in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for a salad. "You're cooking?" He sounded surprised. "Just a salad," she said. "I thought it would be nice to eat together for once." They sat at the table, the silence broken only by the sound of forks against plates. Mark talked about his case, and Lisa nodded at the right moments, but her mind kept drifting to her encounter at the gym. "I signed up for personal training," she said suddenly. Mark looked up. "That's nice. You've been enjoying the gym lately." "I have," she agreed, wondering if he had any idea how empty her days felt, how she filled them with activities to avoid the loneliness of their beautiful home. Tuesday came quickly. Lisa spent extra time getting ready, telling herself it was normal to want to look good for a workout. She chose her most flattering leggings and a top that showed just enough cleavage to be noticeable without being obvious. Jason was waiting for her, clipboard in hand. Ready to get started? His smile was warm, his eyes lingering on her face a moment longer than necessary. The session was intense. Jason pushed her harder than she had pushed herself, his hands occasionally guiding her form with light touches that sent electricity through her skin. When he stood behind her during squats, his breath close to her neck, Lisa felt a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with exercise. "You're stronger than you think," he told her as they finished the session. "Most of my clients would have asked for a break by now." "I like being pushed," Lisa replied, immediately blushing at the unintended double meaning. Jason's eyes darkened slightly. "Good to know. Same time Thursday?" Over the next few weeks, Lisa's training sessions with Jason became the highlight of her week. Their conversations extended beyond fitness, touching on books, travel, and their pasts. Jason was 28, she learned, divorced young from a college sweetheart. He had no children, no attachments. "What about you?" he asked during one cool-down stretch. "You never talk about your husband." Lisa hesitated. "Not much to say. Mark works a lot. We've been married 15 years. Happy?" The question was simple but loaded. Lisa looked away. "It's comfortable." Jason's hand touched her shoulder, ostensibly adjusting her stretch position. Comfortable isn't the same as happy. His fingers lingered a moment too long. When Lisa met his eyes, the attraction between them was palpable, hanging in the air like an unspoken question. That night, Mark called to say he wouldn't be home for dinner again. Lisa sat alone in their kitchen, a glass of wine in hand, thinking about Jason's touch, his smile, the way he looked at her as if he could see past the carefully maintained facade to the lonely woman beneath. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Great session today. You're making amazing progress, Jason." Thursday arrived with a mixture of rain and nervous anticipation. Lisa canceled a lunch with a friend, claiming a headache, but the truth was she couldn't focus on anything except her upcoming session with Jason. She arrived at the gym early, her heart beating faster when she spotted him organizing equipment in the training area. "You're early," he said, his smile making her stomach flip. "Traffic was light," she lied. In reality, she had spent an hour deciding what to wear, settling on a pair of tight black leggings and a low-cut tank top that revealed more than she usually showed at the gym. They began with stretches, Jason's hands lingering on her lower back, her shoulders, her thighs. Each touch sent electricity through her body, making it hard to concentrate on the exercises. Their eyes met frequently, held for seconds longer than necessary. The tension between them was so thick Lisa could barely breathe. "You seem distracted today," Jason said as he guided her through a series of lunges. His hand rested on her hip, steadying her. "I didn't sleep well," she admitted. "Anything on your mind?" His voice was low, intimate. Lisa paused, then took a risk. "You." Jason's eyes darkened. He glanced around the gym, then said quietly, "I get off at 7, if you want to grab a coffee or something." "Coffee sounds good," Lisa replied, her mouth dry. The rest of the session passed in a blur. Lisa's body went through the motions, but her mind was racing ahead to 7 o'clock, to what or something might mean. At home, she showered and changed 3 times, finally settling on jeans and a soft sweater that slipped off one shoulder. She texted Mark that she was meeting a friend for dinner, adding that he shouldn't wait up. His reply was quick and distracted. "Have fun. Working late anyway." Jason was waiting outside a small cafe when she arrived. He looked different in jeans and a button-down shirt, more relaxed but somehow more intense. They ordered coffee but barely touched their cups, the conversation flowing from casual topics to more personal ones. "Why'd you stay?" Jason asked after she described her life with Mark. "If you're so unhappy." Lisa traced the rim of her cup. 15 years is a long time to just throw away, and it's not terrible, it's just empty. "Life's too short for empty," Jason said, his hand covering hers on the table. The cafe grew crowded, the noise making it difficult to talk. "My place is nearby," Jason suggested, his eyes holding a question. Lisa knew what she was agreeing to when she nodded. The walk to his apartment was quiet, tension building with each step. His place was small but tidy, minimally furnished with a leather couch, a coffee table, and a large TV. "It's not much," he said, watching her look around. "It's nice," she replied, turning to find him closer than she expected. There was a moment of hesitation, a final chance to back away from the line they were about to cross. Then Lisa leaned forward, closing the distance between them. His kiss was hungry, urgent, so different from Mark's perfunctory pecks. Jason's hands moved to her waist, pulling her against him, and Lisa gasped at the feeling of his hard body pressed to hers. They stumbled toward the couch, lips never parting, hands exploring eagerly. "Are you sure?" he whispered against her neck. Lisa nodded, beyond words. She had never been more sure of anything. This was wrong, she knew that, but in the moment, it felt like the only right thing in her world. Their clothes fell away quickly. Jason's body was everything she had imagined during their training sessions, strong, toned, and remarkably responsive to her touch. When he laid her down on his bed, his eyes roaming over her naked body with unconcealed desire, Lisa felt beautiful and wanted in a way she hadn't in years. "You're gorgeous," he breathed, his hands following his gaze. Their lovemaking was passionate, intense, both tender and rough in turns. Jason seemed to instinctively know what she needed, pushing her to the edge and bringing her back, until Lisa was trembling, every nerve ending on fire. When she finally came apart in his arms, crying out his name, it was with an intensity that left her breathless and stunned. Afterward, they lay tangled together, the reality of what they had done slowly seeping back. Lisa traced patterns on Jason's chest, trying not to think about Mark, about her marriage vows, about the line she had just irrevocably crossed. "What happens now?" Jason asked, kissing her forehead. Lisa sighed. "I don't know. This shouldn't have happened. But it did." He tilted her chin up, making her look at him. "And I don't regret it." The weeks that followed blurred together in a rhythm of deception that Lisa mastered with surprising ease. She became adept at creating believable excuses to see Jason, book club meetings that didn't exist, shopping trips that yielded no purchases, and work events at the charity where she volunteered once a month but now claimed required her presence weekly. Mark noticed her improved mood but attributed it to her fitness routine. "You seem happier lately," he commented one evening as they ate dinner in their kitchen, a rare moment together. Lisa felt a pang of guilt. "Exercise releases endorphins," she replied, focusing on cutting her chicken into small, precise pieces. "Your trainer must be good." "What's his name again?" Lisa's hand stilled for just a moment. "Jason, and yes, he knows what he's doing." If Mark noticed her brief hesitation or the flush that crept up her neck, he didn't show it. He returned to discussing his latest case, and Lisa nodded at the appropriate times, her mind drifting to her afternoon with Jason, to his apartment where she'd left just 2 hours ago. That night, as Mark slept beside her, Lisa stared at the ceiling and wondered what she had become. The guilt was there, a constant companion, but it was dulled by the excitement and fulfillment Jason brought into her life. With him, she felt desirable, alive, appreciated. He listened when she talked, asked questions about her day, remembered details about her likes and dislikes. He made her feel like she mattered. Tuesday and Thursday training sessions no longer provided enough time together. They began meeting on other days, sometimes just for lunch, but more often at his apartment where they would fall into bed immediately, hungry for each other. Afterward, they would talk for hours, their conversations ranging from childhood memories to future dreams. "Would you ever leave him?" Jason asked one rainy afternoon as they lay in his bed, the sheets tangled around their legs. Lisa traced the line of his jaw. "I don't know. It's complicated." "Because of money?" "Partly," she admitted. "Our lives are completely intertwined. Finances, friends, family. And there's history. 15 years isn't nothing." Jason propped himself up on his elbow. "But is history enough reason to stay unhappy for the rest of your life?" "I'm not unhappy right now," she said, pulling him down for a kiss to end the conversation. But Jason's question lingered in her mind as she drove home, as she showered away his scent, as she prepared dinner for herself alone, because Mark had texted that he'd be working late again. Was history enough? Was it fair to either of them to continue this marriage that had become nothing more than a comfortable arrangement? On a Thursday evening, Lisa told Mark she was attending a fundraiser for her charity. In reality, she was meeting Jason for dinner at a small restaurant in a neighboring town where they were unlikely to run into anyone they knew. It was a risk, but after 2 months of hiding their relationship within the walls of his apartment, they both craved a normal date. Jason looked handsome in a blue button-down shirt that brought out his eyes. They sat across from each other, talking and laughing, their feet touching under the table. For a few hours, Lisa allowed herself to pretend this was her real life, that she was free to be with this man openly, to hold his hand across the table, to kiss him in public. "You look beautiful tonight," Jason said, his eyes warm. "I wish I could take you home and show everyone what an amazing woman I'm with." Lisa felt a twinge of sadness. "I know. I'm sorry it has to be like this." "So do something about it," he challenged gently. "Talk to Mark. Figure out what you both really want. Maybe he's as unhappy as you were." His words hit her unexpectedly hard. She had been so caught up in her own dissatisfaction, her own needs, that she hadn't really considered Mark's feelings. Was he happy? Did he even notice the distance between them anymore? Or had he found his own ways to cope? Later that night, as Lisa drove home, she found herself wondering about Mark's late nights, his weekend conferences, his distracted manner. Had their marriage become as empty for him as it had for her? The thought was strangely painful. She pulled into her driveway just before midnight, surprised to see the house dark. Mark's car wasn't there. She checked her phone and found a text from him. "Don't wait up. Meeting running late. Might just crash at a hotel near the office." Lisa stared at the message, a feeling of unease settling over her. How many times had she sent him similar texts? How many times had she lied about where she was and who she was with? For the first time, she wondered if perhaps Mark had secrets of his own. Lisa's suspicions about Mark grew over the next week. She began to notice patterns she had previously overlooked. His frequent late nights always falling on Tuesdays and Fridays, the way he guarded his phone, angling the screen away when she entered the room, the new cologne she didn't recognize. Small things that alone meant nothing, but together painted a picture she couldn't ignore. "I'm going to Chicago for a legal conference this weekend," Mark announced on Wednesday morning as they moved around each other in their morning routine. "I'll be back Sunday night." Lisa nodded, buttering her toast. "The whole weekend." "The main sessions are Friday and Saturday, but there's a networking dinner Sunday afternoon." He didn't look up from his phone as he spoke. "Do you want me to drive you to the airport?" "No need. The firm arranged a car service." Mark kissed her cheek, the gesture automatic and impersonal. "Don't wait up Sunday. My flight gets in late." After he left, Lisa sat at the kitchen island, her breakfast forgotten. This would be the perfect opportunity to spend an entire weekend with Jason without hurried goodbyes or carefully constructed alibis. The thought excited her, but it was tinged with a new uneasiness, a growing suspicion about her husband's activities. She called Jason, who was thrilled at the prospect of having her for the entire weekend. "Pack a bag," he said. "We'll stay in, cook together, watch movies. I want to see what it's like to wake up next to you without you rushing off." The idea was intoxicating, a glimpse of what life could be like if they were truly together. Lisa packed carefully, selecting lingerie Jason had never seen, casual clothes for lounging, and a dress for Saturday night when he'd suggested they go somewhere nice for dinner. Friday afternoon, Lisa drove to Jason's apartment, her overnight bag in the trunk. The weekend stretched before them, full of possibility. As she parked, her phone rang. "Mark." "Just landed in Chicago," he said, airport noises in the background. "The weather's terrible here. Be safe?" Lisa replied, guilt briefly flaring. "Have a good conference." "I will. Love you." He hung up before she could reply. Jason greeted her with passionate kisses that quickly led to the bedroom. Hours later, they lay tangled in his sheets, takeout containers littering the nightstand. "I could get used to this," Jason murmured against her hair. Lisa smiled, pushing away thoughts of Mark and what this weekend meant for her marriage. For now, she would enjoy this stolen time. Saturday passed in a blur of lovemaking, conversations, and comfortable silences. That evening, they dressed for dinner, Jason looking handsome in slacks and a sports coat. "Where are we going?" Lisa asked as they got into his car. "There's a new Italian place downtown I've been wanting to try. It's supposed to have the best risotto in the city." Lisa tensed. "Downtown? That seems risky. What if someone sees us?" Jason squeezed her hand. "It's 30 minutes away. What are the chances? Besides, don't you get tired of hiding?" She did. The secrecy that had seemed exciting at first now felt exhausting. She nodded, pushing away her anxiety. The restaurant was dimly lit, romantic, with candles on each table and soft music playing. They were led to a corner table, relatively private. Lisa began to relax, enjoying the normalcy of being out with Jason, their knees touching under the table, his smile across from her. They ordered wine, clinked glasses, talked about everything and nothing. For dessert, they shared a tiramisu, their forks meeting playfully. Lisa felt light, happy, almost forgetting the complex reality of their situation. Until she saw them. At first she thought she was mistaken. The restaurant was dark, and the couple was seated on the opposite side. But as the man turned to signal the waiter, Lisa's heart stopped. Mark, her husband, here in this restaurant 30 minutes from home, when he was supposed to be at a conference in Chicago. And he wasn't alone. Across from him sat a young woman with honey blonde hair, leaning in close as she spoke, her hand resting intimately on his. She couldn't be more than 30, beautiful, polished, her face animated as she laughed at something Mark said. The way he looked at her, tender, attentive, desire evident even from across the room, made Lisa's chest tighten painfully. "Are you okay?" Jason asked, noticing her sudden stillness. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Lisa couldn't speak. She watched as Mark took the woman's hand, bringing it to his lips in a gesture so loving it made her throat close. She had never seen that expression on his face when he looked at her, not in years. "Lisa?" Jason's voice seemed to come from far away. Time seemed to freeze as Lisa and Mark stared at each other across the crowded restaurant. The blonde woman noticed Mark's sudden tension and turned, following his gaze to where Lisa sat with Jason. Confusion crossed her face, followed quickly by understanding. "We need to leave," Lisa whispered, her hands trembling as she reached for her purse. Jason nodded, signaling for the check. "Do you want to go out the back? We could ask the waiter." "No." Lisa's voice was surprisingly steady. "I'm not the one who should be sneaking out." Across the room, Mark was leaning toward the blonde woman, speaking urgently. The woman's face had gone pale, her eyes darting between Mark and Lisa. She nodded once, then gathered her own purse. Jason paid the bill in cash, not waiting for change. He placed his hand on Lisa's lower back, steadying her as they stood. "Are you sure you don't want to avoid a scene?" "There won't be a scene," Lisa said, her voice distant even to her own ears. The shock was wearing off, replaced by a cold anger that sharpened her focus. They walked toward the exit, which required passing within 10 feet of Mark's table. As they approached, Mark stood up, looking like he wanted to speak. Lisa paused, meeting his eyes. "Chicago looks lovely this time of year," she said, her voice low enough that only Mark, his companion, and Jason could hear. Mark's face flushed. "Lisa, I can explain." "Not here." She glanced at the blonde woman, who was staring at her hands, clearly uncomfortable. "I believe we both have some explaining to do. Tomorrow at home." Without waiting for his response, Lisa continued walking, Jason's hand still at the small of her back. She felt strangely calm, as if she were watching herself from a distance. Only when they reached Jason's car did the trembling begin. "Are you okay to drive?" she asked Jason, her voice unsteady. "I only had 1 glass of wine hours ago," he assured her, opening her door. "I'm fine. But are you okay?" Lisa leaned against the car, the cool metal grounding her. "I don't know. I should be devastated, right? Finding my husband with another woman?" Jason took her hands. "There's no should here, Lisa. Feel whatever you feel." "That's just it," she said, meeting his eyes. "I'm angry, yes. Hurt that he lied. But devastated? No. Maybe I haven't been for a long time." The drive back to Jason's apartment was quiet, Lisa lost in thought. She should call a friend, get a hotel room, but the thought of explaining everything was exhausting, and if she was honest with herself, she needed Jason tonight, his warmth, his comfort. "Do you want me to take you somewhere else?" Jason asked as they neared his building. Lisa shook her head. "No. I want to stay with you." Inside his apartment, Jason poured them both a glass of whiskey. Lisa took hers gratefully, the alcohol burning a path down her throat, warming her numb body. "What happens now?" Jason asked, sitting beside her on the couch. Lisa stared at her glass. "I don't know. Mark and I need to talk. Really talk, for the first time in years." "About divorce?" Jason's voice held a note of hope that Lisa wasn't ready to address. "About everything," she looked at him. "This doesn't change us, Jason. I still have feelings for you. But I need to deal with my marriage before I can think about anything else." Jason nodded, disappointment flashing briefly in his eyes. "I understand. I just want you to know that I'm here, whatever you decide. This isn't just an affair for me, Lisa." She touched his face gently. "I know. It's not for me either." They made love that night with a different kind of intensity, slower, deeper, an unspoken understanding between them that everything had changed. Afterward, as Jason slept beside her, Lisa lay awake, thinking about the blonde woman, about the look on Mark's face when he kissed her hand. He loved her, that much was clear. The realization should have hurt more than it did. Her phone lit up with a text. "Mark, I'm at home. Can we talk tonight?" Lisa replied, "I won't be home tonight. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. His response came quickly. "I'll be there. Lisa, I'm sorry." She stared at those 3 words, wondering if she should say the same. But sorry for what exactly? For finding someone who made her feel alive again, for seeking outside her marriage what had been missing within it, or for breaking vows that had long ago become empty words. As dawn broke, Lisa finally drifted to sleep, her mind made up. Tomorrow would be about honesty, brutal, painful, necessary honesty. About their marriage, their affairs, and what, if anything, was left to salvage from the ruins of 15 years together. Beside her, Jason stirred, wrapping his arm around her waist. Lisa leaned back into his warmth, allowing herself this comfort before facing what promised to be the most difficult conversation of her life. Lisa arrived home at exactly 9 o'clock the next morning. She had left Jason's apartment early, stopping for coffee to steady her nerves before the inevitable confrontation. The house looked exactly as it always did, immaculate, tasteful, and somehow cold despite the morning sunlight streaming through the windows. Mark was waiting in the kitchen, 2 mugs of coffee on the island between them. He looked like he hadn't slept, his usually crisp appearance rumpled, dark circles under his eyes. The silence stretched between them, heavy with 15 years of history and 3 months of deception. "Her name is Emma," Mark finally said, his voice rough. "She's a paralegal at the firm." Lisa nodded, setting her purse on the counter. "How long?" 6 months. He looked down at his coffee. "And yours? The guy from the restaurant?" "Jason, my trainer." Lisa met his eyes. 3 months. Mark let out a long breath, running his hand through his hair. I don't even know where to start. Why? Lisa asked, the question simple but loaded with meaning. Mark was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. At first it was just physical. Emma joined the firm, she was attractive, she paid attention to me. But then, he paused. Then it became more. She made me feel alive again. The words hit Lisa with unexpected force. They were almost exactly how she would describe her feelings for Jason. Is that why you lied about Chicago? She asked. Mark nodded. Emma has a lake house upstate. We were supposed to spend the weekend there. He looked at her directly. What about you? Where were you really going to be this weekend? With Jason. At his apartment. The honesty felt strange, frightening but also freeing. I was tired of sneaking around. So was I, Mark sighed, his shoulders slumping. What happened to us, Lisa? We used to be happy. Lisa leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. I don't know. We stopped seeing each other, I think. Really seeing each other. We became roommates, not partners. Mark nodded, pain evident in his eyes. I noticed, when you started pulling away. But I didn't know how to fix it. Work was easier. At least there I knew what I was doing. And I resented you for it, Lisa admitted. For choosing work over me, over us. They were quiet again, each lost in their own thoughts. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, marking the passing moments of their broken marriage. Do you love her? Lisa finally asked, surprised by how calm she felt asking the question. Mark hesitated, then nodded. I think I do. And your trainer? Do you love him? I'm falling for him, Lisa said softly. It's not just physical for me either. They looked at each other across the kitchen island, two people who had once promised to love each other forever, now admitting to loving others. So what happens now? Mark asked. Lisa took a deep breath. I think we both know our marriage is over. It was over long before either of us met someone else. Mark's eyes filled with tears, something Lisa hadn't seen in years. 15 years, Lisa, that's a long time to just throw away. Is that what we'd be doing? Throwing it away? She moved around the island to stand beside him. Or would we be acknowledging that we've both changed, that we want different things now? Mark reached for her hand and Lisa let him take it, remembering the early days of their relationship when that simple touch would send electricity through her body. Now it felt familiar, comfortable, but the spark was gone. I don't hate you, she said softly. That's what surprises me most. I thought if this ever happened, I'd be devastated, furious, but mostly I feel sad. Sad that we let things get to this point. Mark squeezed her hand. I'll always care about you, Lisa. That hasn't changed. They talked for hours, really talked for the first time in years. About when things started to go wrong, about the walls they had built between them, about their fears and regrets. They cried together, laughed occasionally at the irony of their parallel affairs, and began the painful process of disentangling their lives. As evening approached, they sat on the patio, watching the sunset over their carefully landscaped yard. Mark had called Emma earlier, asking for time to sort things out. Lisa had done the same with Jason. Do you think we could have fixed this? Mark asked, his voice quiet in the gathering dusk. If we tried earlier? Lisa thought about it, searching her heart for the truth. Maybe. But I think we both would have had to want it badly enough. And somewhere along the way, we stopped fighting for us. Mark nodded, his face illuminated by the last rays of sunlight. For what it's worth, I hope you find happiness with Jason, if he's what you want. And I hope Emma makes you happy, Lisa replied, surprised to find she meant it. You deserve that. As darkness fell, they moved inside. Two people who had once shared everything now preparing to go their separate ways. There would be lawyers, paperwork, the division of assets, explanations to friends and family. But for now, there was just this moment of understanding, of acceptance, and perhaps the beginning of forgiveness. Lisa went to bed in the guest room that night, listening to the familiar sounds of the house that would soon no longer be her home. Instead of sadness, she felt a strange sense of peace. Tomorrow was uncertain, but for the first time in years she was looking forward to it.